Thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate that. Thanks for having me out here today. First, I want to start by talking about my journey to this stage right now. I've been speaking for about 30 years, hundreds of places, churches, schools, companies, everything like that. And I first got introduced to inspired leaders about a year ago from a mutual friend, and I talked to Andy and said I would really love the opportunity to spread my life-saving message about organ donation and my family's experience with it. And he said, that sounds great. We had an interview, and he said, one of the things we require is that you attend at least 2 events before you speak. And I love this group. I have been here, I think, every single month except one when I was on vacation. So I truly believe in what they're doing here. I do believe it is a unique thing to share the down parts, the sad parts, the parts that we don't see. We've all seen the image of the iceberg with success and things like that, and then all the things underneath the water level, hard work and, when you've lost. And I think that there's a place for that. And it helps to know that you're not alone. It helps to know that this is happening to everybody else as well, and it increases our empathy. That said, I heard a quote recently, because I am not immune to this. I have my own struggles as well, some of which you're going to hear about. And it was, I thought, very profound. We all have a story that's been written so far, but the pen is still in our hand. That really struck a chord in me. The pen is still in our hand. Just because what happened yesterday happened, don't get overwhelmed by it. Don't get consumed by it. It's one thing for me to be telling my woes here to try to share, the low points with you, but don't dwell on your low points. Focus on your positive points. On the opposite end as well, I'm going to tell you one of the best things that I heard from a guy named Pat Williams. Any of you that are familiar with the NBA and sports know that Pat Williams was the guy that got the expansion team to come to Orlando and created the Orlando Magic. And he spoke to my fellow group of NBA mascots at one of our conferences one year, and he said, it's great to win a championship and to wear that ring. And when that ring first slips onto your finger, it's the most amazing feeling in the world to know that you were the best and you were the best on that team. He's like, but after a little bit, you got to put that ring away into a drawer and move forward. So don't rest on your laurels. Now, I have 3 goals while I'm up here today. One is to entertain you a little bit with some anecdotal stories from my career. 2, to inspire you with my family's journey with organ donation and some of the challenges that came along with being a mascot. Everybody thinks that it's fun and games. It is not. It's supposed to look like that if you're doing it right. And then finally, 3, educate you a little bit about what a retired NBA mascot does at this age. So I got a little video for you here. If you're not familiar with my work, this will give you a little idea of what 21 years in So just to get a few of the top 10 questions I get, because this is a rather unique, odd, whatever you want to say, career. And anytime I'm meeting people socially or in business, they have pretty much the same questions. So I've boiled them down to the top 10 with one-word answers. Is it hot in there? Yes. So what's your real job? This. Do you sweat a lot? Yes. Can I have some free tickets? No. How much money do you make? Lots. Do you smile in costume when taking pictures? Yes. Is it hard not to talk? No. How do you see? Eyes. How do you pee? Urinal. Are you a boy or a girl in there? Urinal. So hopefully that clears up some of the housekeeping. Thank you. My journey started out as a mascot in 1991 in high school when I was asked by the cheerleaders, I was dating the head cheerleader, to be the mascot. They didn't have tryouts, anything like that. I grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia, was the Wissahickon Trojan. No, I was not a giant condom. I actually wore the body armor and, the Brad Pitt thing from Troy and, did it as gustfully as I could, with gusto, and enjoyed it. When I got to college, I met some cheerleaders. Yes, you're starting to notice a little theme here in my career and life. I met some cheerleaders at a freshman party, and just so happened they were having mascot tryouts the next day. I didn't set out to be the mascot at the University of Delaware, but I went out and tried out. It was a humiliating experience. It was an empty room with no costume, no music, no props, and 5 of the head cheerleaders and the sponsors sitting there, and they said, okay, pretend you have a costume on, and Delaware's down 42-0, what do you do? And I'm like, huh? So I acted like the other team was over there by doing a cross or something, and boo, boo, and then I went to pick up a chair and throw it across the room, and they were like, we've seen enough. That's good. And I walked out of there feeling humiliated. Now, this was back in 1993. You didn't have cell phones, pagers, any of that. Get back to my dorm room. I get a call within a half hour. Job's yours. Could not believe it. Went to Delaware. It was 18,000 undergrad, 7,000 grad. It was a mid-sized school. Turns out that only one other guy tried out. He'd been doing it for 2 years, and they hated this guy. So I was basically any warm body that walked into this was going to get it. The guy left me a nice parting gift by running Poison Ivy all the way through the costume. And when I went to mascot camp that summer up at Rutgers, I came down with an entire body case of Poison Ivy. So that was my nice start to mascotting. However, I did come in at a very fortunate time that had nothing to do with me. The University of Delaware was rebranding. Every different college, economics, business, arts, and science, had their own version of what the blue hen looked like. And the president that came in was from Kentucky, and he said, this is ridiculous. Nobody in the state of Delaware and around the country really knows who we are by our logo and brand, and we're going to unify that with a new mascot, and we're going to call it UD. Youdee, which was a play on UD, the University of Delaware. And so at 19, I got to see a front row seat of a rebrand and the resistance from a lot of the departments that didn't want to go to a new thing. So I got to learn a valuable marketing lesson as well as kind of becoming an entertainer. The first time I popped out of a box in front of 18,000 people as the gift to the university, I was nervous as you can get. But I got to really enjoy that craft and that art form. Got offered a job by the Houston Rockets in the beginning of my senior year because I had taught for Universal Cheerleaders Association and got offered the job. And I said, well, when do you need me down there? This was during the lockout. And they said, tomorrow. So I dropped out of my senior year of college. Most people think, oh my gosh, your parents must have gone nuts. Your professors, the president, not one went nuts. The president of the University of Delaware said, take the job. School will always be here. Every time one of those jobs comes open, there's only about 100 nationally. There's 1,000 resumes that land on a desk. If you don't like it down there, come back. We'll readmit you, and you can finish your degree here at Delaware. If it does work out, we'll let you take classes at U of H, and as long as you get A's, we'll take them, and you can graduate here. that's what I did. I started the Rockets mascot in 95 and graduated 1997, and the Rockets paid for me to finish my education. So, all well and good. I thought I'd do this for a few years, rub some bald heads, shoot some silly string, and then move on, to either grad school or marketing, something like that. Turned out I had a flair for it, but I was very discontent at first. 2 months, I felt underpaid. I took the job for $20,000. I was making more at Delaware between my partial scholarship, and they paid me $10 an hour. And I was working about 50 hours a week to start this. And everybody hated me, because if you remember, that was right after the second championship. So I got there 3 months after it, and everybody loved Turbo. Their idea of a mascot was a spandex form-fitting character that did amazing stunts, not a big teddy bear. So the most common thing I got said to me was, "Hey, Rockets Rat, get out of my way, where's Turbo?" And I was making 20 grand. And my boss, second month on the job, told me, "Listen, Robert, this company's never going to pay anybody more than $40,000 a year to be their mascot. So if that's your goal or your dream, you should leave now and go back to Delaware." I tucked that in my back pocket, decided not to listen to him, moved forward with my plans, because I had big plans for this character. Now, where did that end up? The last 10 years of my career, I averaged about $280,000 to $300,000 a year for the last 10 years of it. I tell you that not to brag. I tell you that to not set self-limitations upon yourself, nor let your bosses or your colleagues or your peers set them upon you. I finished my stay at the Rockets in 2016 as the highest paid mascot in the country. A big part of that was because I hustled. I didn't just answer the phone for appearances. I went out, created programs for schools, did 2,200 school programs, and I really marketed custom created programs, and went out there to hustle for that third-party revenue. My time at the Rockets by far exceeded all of my expectations. I got to perform in 12 countries. I got to write 7 children's books that were given out for free to over 500,000 copies to Houston youth. I did 2,200 school shows. I did Armed Forces entertainment tours in war zones in Kosovo while there was active war going on. I got to perform for our troops, which was one of the most rewarding experiences of my career. I do have a best moment, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. Now, there were some bumps along the way. Some were funny. I'll share a couple of those real quick with you anecdotally. I got punched in the face by a billionaire. I was in the inflatable costumes you saw up there scaring people. Most of those, like the crotch kick, those are plants. We plant those in to get the reaction that you guys exactly gave. However, I was on the court when we were playing the Mavericks one time and bopped Mark Cuban in the head, who had a grin on his face and used to be with the team, and he playfully goes back to punch me. Well, the thing you don't know about those inflatables is when you come forward, you bop somebody, then the costume comes back. Where's my face? It's right up against that front two-way screen. And his punch, boom, hits me right in the mouth. I saw stars and blood shoot out everywhere, and just a quizzical look on Mark's face of like, I thought that'd be softer. He was totally fine. We emailed each other years later when the All-Star was in Dallas, and I explained it to him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," probably thinking I was going to sue or something. But he was apologetic. I ruined a Martin Luther King Jr. Day parade once by accident. Oh, not funny then. The Mark Cuban was funny at the time, and now this one, I was in tears. My assistant knew that I really liked doing the MLK Day parade, and he would always provide more stuff, more shirts to throw out, more silly string, more confetti cannons, all more stuff. And so I ride on the hood of the van, we're coming down, and we're right in front of the grandstands. That's where all the dignitaries, the politicians, the media cameras, the DJ, the MC, the live band are set up. So of course I use more stuff right there, right? My assistant packed our Mylar streamers. Now, very quickly, Mylar streamers are made of metal. They shimmer. They look like a firework, as opposed to paper streamers that are flatter and cheaper. And he packed the Mylar ones. And I was like, great idea. So right in front of the grandstands, we're shooting stuff off, and all of a sudden I hear, boom. And my first thought was, oh no, the neo-Nazis are attacking the Martin Luther King Jr. Day Parade. And then I hear the helicopter over top that was always there, but my mind's playing tricks on me. It was there to begin with, covering the parade. And then I'm looking side to side. None of these cops are scaring. Everybody's still smiling. And then I yell back to my assistant who's driving the van and handing me stuff. Hey man, was that us? And he's like, I don't know. I think it was, man. So what happened was these metallic Mylar streamers went up in the air. Wind took them sideways right into the power lines where there was a transformer and blew out 4 city blocks of power, including the main stage, DJ, MC, live band. Oh man, I was in tears. Luckily, they understood. They had me back in all subsequent years, but it was not a good day for me. Accidentally shot Catino Mobley, one of our starting forwards, with our big T-shirt gun. We used to put it on the game script as BFG, big gun. I'll let you fill in the middle part, but that's what it was on the script. It was a 6-foot gun, nitrogen tanks on my back. One of the problems was you could reach the second level, but not the lower level. So we introduced cheerleaders to the lower level to throw out to the crowd. One of them is running this way, but looking that way, and boom, runs right into me, knocks me to the ground, sets the gun off. 20 feet from the huddle, hits Catino Mobley in the chest, puts him out of the game. I jump back up, not knowing where it went, because you got to remember, this is all I can see. And it's just like, hey, there's the stupid bear with his painted on grin. Hey, who wants a shirt? I just almost killed one of our players. I get in the back, and I'm like, what happened out there, to my assistant? I was blessed to have the same assistant for 17 years, Dominic Davila, full time. And he said, man, it's worse than you think. And right as he said that, Catino came around the corner, being carried like a wounded soldier with 2 trainers underneath of him, cussing under his breath. Man, I am Texan now. I just said cussing. I'm from Philadelphia. I swore I'd move back home once I started saying y'all, but that happened years ago. So Catino was out of the game and wouldn't talk to me for 2 years until he got the true story. Here's a tough one. 2011, 2012, we're supposed to share our shit here. 2011, 2012, I was married to the dance director. She was the dance captain before that, and she was on the dance team before that. Sounds great, right? She had her major, she was an accounting major and had her master's in accounting, worked for Ernst & Young, and everything was going along swimmingly. Then she got offered the job as the full-time dance director. So she was doing kind of nothing but stepping down money-wise in her career as opposed to the partner track she was on. And I can remember my father very clearly kind of discouraged me from working with my spouse, especially in a toxic environment that the Rockets could be, in an entertainment environment, working under the same boss and doing something similar. And it put a stress on the marriage. And after an 11-year marriage, after we had just had twins 2 years beforehand, that marriage cracked. While we had our house for sale, because we were trying to move north right during the market crash. So we've got a house that's been on sale for 2 years. We've got a marriage where we separated. We both work at the Rockets under the same boss, and nobody knows. Our offices are 20 feet away from each other. During our separation, I'm leaving the game one day with my 2 twin sons, who were just almost 3. And, you know, at this point, they don't even know Dwight Howard or James Harden's name. They know mommy, daddy. And my one son, Luke, goes, look, daddy, there's Jason's office. And in a heartbeat, I knew that mommy's dating Jason. And all 3 of us work right across from each other. So that made for a very challenging time. While that house was still up for sale, we're living at different places financially. The humiliation that I felt, we were keeping it as quiet as possible and nobody knew, but then it leaked out in forward-facing roles. Everything then was compounded because my father, Paul, was suffering from a disease called idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. They lived up in the Woodlands. They moved out here when he retired. And idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis is an unknown scarring of the lungs with no known cause and no known cure. It is not lifestyle related. Some people get it, diagnosed, and pass away within 6 months. Some people get it, diagnosed, and live with it for 20 years. At this exact time that my separation and house is still on the market and all of this is happening, my dad really can't get through a sentence. I'm up there in early February having lunch with my mom and dad and twins, and he can't get through a sentence. So, old school dads don't always like to listen to their sons, but I figuratively wrestled his doctor's numbers away from him, called the doctors, told him what his oxygen levels were, and they said to me, and I'll never forget, can you get him to the ER at Methodist in the Woodlands, or do you think you have time to get him to the one downtown? Downtown would be better. So in that moment, I knew this must be really critical if we're talking about 15-minute drive versus 45-minute drive. We got him down there. And he couldn't even make it to the passenger side car door with me helping him under his arm. My mom had to run out with a chair so that he was sitting down to catch his breath, not 10 feet from my passenger side door. Got him to the hospital. Doctor came out and said, listen, your dad has about 12 weeks to live if he doesn't get a double lung transplant. It was pretty tough. Everything in life was tough at this point. A week later, he got on the transplant list. They do that by 2 criteria, and 2 criteria only. 1, how dire is your situation? How imminent is your passing if you don't get the organ you need to save your life? And 2, how overall healthy are you otherwise? They don't want to give a pair of lungs to somebody that's going to pass away of a heart attack next week. So my dad qualified. He was on the list. And then Valentine's Day 2012, he was given his second chance at life, when tragically, a young man named Ian Heidemann passed away at the age of 22 in a car crash in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Now, thankful for Ian's forward-thinking, selfless decision 3 years prior to make himself an organ donor. He saved 5 lives, and my dad was one of them. Now, what I would ask you each is to think about this. What do you want if you have an untimely death? Organ donors are not people that die on a long runway of a cancer or a disease. They come from trauma. Gunshots, car accidents, ski accidents, motorcycle accidents. Those are the big ones. So you wake up one day, you have your loved one, everything's great. By the midday or end of the day, they're gone. To put that decision on your family, your next of kin, is not the right decision. They're not in the right frame of mind. They're overwhelmed with grief. This is a decision we should all make for ourselves, one way or another now. So I'd encourage you to think about it. If you have the heart on your license, you're an organ donor. If you don't, you're probably not. Not definitely, but probably not. You can sign up in 60 seconds from your smartphone at Donate Life America or DonateLifeTexas.com. Now, when I got involved in the cause, there was 2.9 million registered donors out of 25 million Texans. Today, we have 33 million Texans, and we have 32 million Texans, and we have over 17,000 people on the donor registry, which is 56%. Thank you. So, yeah, I take full credit for all of that increase, by the way. So we're making progress, but we need more. We are above the national average, which is a good thing. National average, 170 million organ donors registered. Population, I checked this morning, is 335 million Americans. So it's just under 50%. So I'd encourage you to make that decision for yourself. Register if you're not. Share this story with your family and have this conversation. It's a tough conversation to have. Who wants to talk about their untimely death? It's not an easy one. So I left some information out there for you. About 22 people die every day because there's not enough available organs. There's 107,000 people on the waiting list right now for organs. One of the phrases we like to say is, you can't take your organs to heaven. Heaven knows we need them here. I should have probably told you I'm a little bit of a fast talker. That's because I'm a single dad of 2 sets of twins. Because God blessed me. God blessed me with 2 sets of twins. That first set, I ended up being a single dad too. So, I told you some of the good stuff about Clutch, but when my dad was getting his transplant, we got the call at 1:30 on Valentine's Day night, and we went down to the hospital. So it's technically the 15th of February. Guess what was supposed to happen on the 15th of February? The house that I had for sale with my soon-to-be ex-wife was closing that day. So they sent an escrow agent to the hospital where we were since 2 a.m. so that I could close. Well, I didn't get there until about 5 minutes before my dad went into surgery. And you got to remember, the gravity. They're going to cut his lungs out of his body before the new ones are even in the hospital. Because the second the new ones come in, time is of the essence, and they go in. So there I am, a foot away from my dad's bed, signing, and y'all know what closing a house is. I'm a realtor. A lot of you are realtors. I'm just signing wherever she's telling me. I'm breaking down, crying at moments, sucking it in, keep going. The woman, the escrow agent that was a stranger, she starts crying. I'm like, what are you crying for? It's not your dad. Yeah, finished the signing, got through it, sent Dad into surgery, and he's still with us today, 12 and a half years later. And he's actually, due to his perseverance, the skill of the surgeons, and my mother's help, here with us today, and I'd like them both to stand. Thanks for being here, guys. So, they got to see a second set of twins come along as well. But as life often goes, that didn't come without its challenges. In 2016, I was 21 years deep into my career that I thought I'd spend the rest of my life doing. And I went in for my every 4-year contract negotiation, and the Rocket said, we're not going to renew you. And they went and hired somebody right out of college for 1/6 of the money. Is that the 5-minute sign or 5-hour sign? I'm entertaining, but not that entertaining. So walked out 2 weeks before my second set of twins were born, jobless in a very niche market. And it was tough. I fell into the 3 Ds, drinking, depression, and divorce. So got divorced for a second time. Unfortunately, I was with somebody, my boy's mother and I get along very well, but my girl's mother didn't really seem to have much interest in me once I was not the rich, famous Clutch the Bear in her mind, and had to move forward. I created my own sports marketing consulting practice, and it flourished. For 4 years, some of my biggest clients were the XFL out of Stamford, league office, Sam Houston Race Park, University of Houston, NCAA, Houston on the Cheap, who I'm joined with by a colleague here, and was back up making just as much as I was with the Rockets. And then I thought I was so diverse, everything was great. And then a little thing came along called COVID. And I realized all these eggs I had in different baskets were all in one big giant basket called the event business. Filed for unemployment in June of 2020, pivoted it to real property. So if you're asking yourself, what does a ex-mascot do that is a single dad of 2 sets of twins? I do everything real property. It's on the back of your sheets. I'm not going to belabor it too much, but I sell mineral rights portfolio. I am the chief marketing officer for Spear Minerals, which is basically a collection of 90 parcels of subsurface land that is deeded. And it's hard for people to wrap their head around this, but it is deeded in your name, so it's real property, and it's a way of diversifying your generational wealth and retirement away from the volatility of the market, but still getting double-digit returns. We returned 11.5% last year and are projected 10 to 20% for generations to come. I'm also a realtor. Been at that for a little bit over a year, and that is a challenge as well, getting people to see you as a realtor with their most valuable asset in the world versus the guy that used to throw cakes in people's face. So I'm going to leave with this last video, and then give away two things. Real quick, that's my dad getting that's Janice Heidemann listening to my dad's lungs inside of my dad's chest. Reggie King looking on, who received Ian's heart. And that's Ian's dad, Rob, listening to his son's lungs inside my dad's chest. And hopefully this convinces you.
Today's a special day. It's the second consecutive year that I've run the Houston Half Marathon in full costume as Clutch for organ donation awareness. My father's life was saved by an organ donor on February 15th, 2012 that saved his life. He was suffering from idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, which is a non-lifestyle related lung disease, a hardening of the lungs, and it was compounded by a case of pneumonia, and I had rushed him to the hospital on February 2nd, 2012. The doctors basically said he has about 3 months to live if he doesn't get a transplant. And a week later, he was on the transplant list, and a week later after that, he got the transplant that saved his life. So that's what today's about. Today's about creating the biggest spectacle in a fun, silly, goofy way with a 6'8", 92-inch waist teddy bear that's going to run 13.1 miles, and he's going to stand out in the crowd, and people are going to turn their heads and go, "What? This is ridiculous. This is amazing. This is silly." And then when they do turn their heads, they're going to see the band across my forehead that has donatelifetexas.org on it, and they're going to see the message on my t-shirt, the 6XL that it is, along with the rest of my team that's running with me, that says Team Clutch. I run for organ donation awareness. donatelifetexas.org. Become an organ donor today. Today is one piece of my quest to try to convince as many people in our country to say yes to organ donation as possible. There's 120,000 people on the transplant waiting list. 18 people die every single day in our country that otherwise would have been saved if there was enough available organs and people registered to be organ donors. It's something that everybody can participate in. It's something that everybody might benefit at one point in their life. And it only takes about 60 seconds to go online and sign up. Most of people, it's just an awareness issue, and it's about taking the time to do it. Every major world religion supports organ donation, and we're going to make a difference.
Thank you very much. I come bearing gifts. Who can tell me when my dad got his transplant? What year?